Hey, folks, over the last 5 years, we have seen a meteoric rise of women in professional wrestling. We've witnessed what has happened with female superstars in the WWE to the point where we have now seen an all women pay per view event with the Evolution broadcast and then the first female match ever at an event in Saudi Arabia. And that rise continues throughout the world of professional wrestling. That wave includes my guest this episode, who first made a name for herself with Lucha Underground and is quickly becoming a big star with the new NWA and its Power program. Melissa Cervantes, a.k.a. Thunder Rosa. Welcome to Primetime. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. A lot is going on in your life right now. And I always think it's interesting when you talk to people because when people start knowing your name, they think, oh, they just came on the scene. This has been a bit of a road for you. And I think it really started about 5 years ago.
Yes, I started training in 2014 in Gold Mine APW after I was supposed to be training in Hayward, California at the old APW garage where Roland Alexander was from. But he passed away and I lost all my money, so I had to find another school.
Oh boy, that's a tough start, but it shows you were determined because you found another one. But what got you to the point where you wanted to start training? I think you had jujitsu training. Did that come first, and then the martial arts, or what?
No, I didn't have no background on anything. I was actually on the process of applying for my master's degree. I was actually cleaning my son's closet and I found my complete application for my master's degree that I never turned in because that's like the money that I used for the school. I was going to use it for that. So that was happening and I had a really stressful job and I just started watching indie wrestling and my husband really thought that I will be great at becoming a professional wrestler and I try out and I just liked it, and I noticed that I was in really bad shape, and I always wanted to stand out, even if it was in a different way. I wanted to stand out on how my body looked and everything. So that's how I started training outside of the ring, and then I also had to learn how to tumble. I went to acrobatics classes for adults, so I can learn how to do handstands. So I can do learn how to roll. Yeah. So I learned the basics of stuff before I got into the ring. So I didn't want to be like that chubby girl that couldn't even run the ropes and will get super gassed and super tired the first round. I want to be the best in the class if I was going to join for something like that. I just didn't want the guys to treat me like a girl, and I wanted them to I wanted to earn their respect. That's one thing that I noticed. Even before I stepped in the ring, my husband and I, we used to volunteer. We used to tear rings. I used to be the ring girl. I was just trying to learn the business before I got into it. Because I always did that. I always did my research for school and for everything like that before I got my feet really wet into things. So I knew what I was getting myself into, and that's what I did.
Yeah. Were you always a good athlete? You say you didn't have any training, but did you have the basics of just being a good athlete? Did you play other sports?
But I learned all the sports when I was older. My parents never really had the time or the money to support us on sports. We were 4 girls in our house in Mexico, and my parents really struggled to make ends meet. And sports were secondary in our house. The first thing it was to put food on the table and make sure that we got an education, because getting an education was to get out of poverty. So that was what's ingrained on me. And even when they were not pushing me, I always pushed myself to get the best grades and to be the best in my class. Because that's what's gonna get me out of it, and that's what happened. I got out of the area that I used to live because I went to UC Berkeley, and that's where everything happened in the Bay. Yeah.
What was it like to grow up in Tijuana?
But back then it was nice. I mean, you knew all your neighbors. I grew up in the same place. I didn't really move. It was pretty calm. But by the time I came to the United States, it was 2003, 2004, 2005. That's when things started getting a little more difficult. After 2000, after 9/11, that's when things really, really started changing for us. Right. Because we live in the border, and my dad used to work in San Diego, so it was really hard for him to cross the border. and things just started getting really difficult. So that's when my dad decided that it was time for us to move to the United States.
Yeah. And how did the opportunity to go to UC Berkeley, and that must have been quite a culture shock to go there.
So I like I told you, I've always been very involved in school and other extracurricular activities that had to do with politics, with social movement. And when I was in high school here in the United States, that's when I started getting involved in a lot of that stuff. And that's when I learned that there was an opportunity for me to get the best education. And that meant I could leave the area that I was living. So I applied to all the UC Berkeley schools that I could for free too, because I was always like the type of person that I always look for opportunities, and if I can get something for free, I'll do it. So
Yeah.
I did, and I got into UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, Irvine, and another one, Santa Barbara, I think. And I wanted to go to UCLA. I actually went to a program in UCLA, and I was like, I just liked it a lot. But my husband's like, I don't want to live in LA. There's too much traffic. We should go to UC Berkeley. So before I went to UC Berkeley, we took a trip and I visited the school, and I was like, oh my God, this is pretty great. Yeah. Area is awesome. And we made the decision. We packed in 1989 Caravan, and we drove for 15 hours because it was overheating every hour. So we had to pour water and just like wait another hour. And it's just like, we made it. We didn't have any money. And then when we got there, he lost his job. So I was the only one bringing money in there. So it was rough, but my dream was to become the first one in my family to graduate from college.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And congratulations on that. You mentioned that you were thinking about getting your master's. But was it the plan to get your degree and then go into social causes? Was that what you had initially thought you were going to do? And when did the dream change? Or
I think everything started changing when I started making real good money in wrestling. I was like,
was it a sideline? And because I know you did do a lot of work with kids and addiction related causes and that kind of thing. So were you doing both, or how did those roads converge?
I think it was when I started doing working with the families in the community, I was able to make my own schedule. And then at the same time, I got signed for Lucha Underground. So I was coming into work really late on Mondays. And then I wasn't really like putting the time and the effort that I needed to put on my clients. But I mean, the money with Lucha Underground was really good, and I started saving all of it. So I think that's when my husband and we decided that it was a better idea for me to focus on one thing only, and that was wrestling. Because let's be honest, the life shelf of the women in wrestling is kind of short, and I started kind of old in this business. So I said, well, we're gonna go all out all these next 5 years and see what happens. And that's what I did. So I stopped working full time, and I said, I'm going to be a wrestler, but I'm going to use this platform to help other people. If I have time to do volunteer work, I'm going to keep doing volunteer work. I'm going to keep working with youth, or I'm going to keep working with community organizations that I like. And that's what I continue to do when I was in Oakland, or here in San Antonio.
Yeah. And I saw in an interview that you mentioned when you talk about that work, that and anybody that's in that line of work, it's very stressful emotionally, and that you didn't really here you were, this person who was trying to help these people who had serious stress and serious emotional issues, and yet you weren't taking care of yourselves. And so did the wrestling become that outlet?
Yeah.
Before it really wait until it really started happening for you?
Yeah, wrestling and fitness became my outlet. It was just like all this anger and all this frustration that I had. I would just leave it in the ring, or when I was hitting my partners, because they always told me I was very stiff. So I was like, again. So I will just leave it there, and then when I come to work, I was just thinking about, oh man, I can't wait for the weekend to get on the ring, and wrestle in front of people.
So we kind of fast forwarded there as far as the career went, but obviously it's especially when you don't have any training or background, or you don't come from a family. How rough was it initially to, first get through school of learning how to do this and then finding work?
Man, it was rough. I mean, I just remember balancing a full-time job and having to drive for an hour and a half to the school. then an hour, an hour and a half back home, and then waking up at 5 a.m. It was rough. And then it was even more rough when we had like heat week, and where they used to teach us how to like do heat, but we have to take heat. So that means that we were gonna get beat up. And I remember one time the vets will come and they will beat the crap out of us.
Yeah.
And I remember my neck was so purple, and my husband was like, "Stop crying." And I'm like, my neck hurts. It's like, it really hurts. I can't move it. It's just like, well, you got to suck it up because it's gonna be a long road, and you gotta be tough, you know. And I remember going to work, and I'm like,
Yeah, easy for him to say, right?
well, you know, he played football and he did like a bunch of sports, so he's a hard knock, so he doesn't take it easy on me. Like, he's the one who like got me in the gym, and I'd be like crying when I'm doing reps, and he's like, "You stop that," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to." But my coworkers always laughed because I couldn't move. So certain days I'll be like moving like this, my whole body, because I couldn't move. It was really, really rough. There was another girl, and then at the end I was the only girl in class.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody is like, "Yeah, I want to be a wrestler. My dream is to become a wrestler. I want to be in WWE." And then 3 months later, I'm like, I don't think this is for me.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have the heart and if you don't have a mental toughness, like, you cannot do that. Like you weed yourself out real quick. And it's like all this, like, everybody talks and everybody says they want to do this and everybody says they're going to do that. And like, I look back and like some people like text me back and I'm like, "Oh, I remember when we did the tryout together. What have you done with your life?" And they're like, "Oh, we're really proud of you. You've done really much. A lot more than we ever thought you would."
That's great. I guess, the first real break, and did work for some other organizations professionally, but you talk about that Lucha Underground, and that's a really I love watching that. And when I first got turned on to it, it was just very different, which is the same with what you're involved in now. But what was that experience like for you? And then, as far as you developing as a performer, how much did that help you?
Man, it helped me tremendously. It was, the pressure was on. I always learn by, trial by fire. The same with like now with MMA, I jumped in like on like right off the bat, and I should have like, I mean, looking back, you're like, "Oh man, I should have waited a little bit." But sometimes opportunities knock on the door, and you have to open the door, and you have to go for it, and you got to run with it. And that's what I did with Lucha Underground. I remember my first match with Bengala was like one of the most difficult things I've done, because I never done lucha. I didn't train on lucha, and I was very unfamiliar with a lot of the moves and the psychology. So it was rough. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was a tremendous opportunity, and I made the best out of it. But it was very, very rough and very difficult. Like, there was nights that I will come back to my room and I will cry, on the floor, because I felt so ashamed for my performance and because I wanted to do more. I mean, I'm working with people that have 20 years of experience. I've been all over the world, like Rey Mysterio, Chavo Guerrero Sr., a lot of the writers and executives there, some of the ladies that were there, some Mexican legends that were there. I mean, and I was like the greenest of the greenest. And then I was put in one of the most like important roles that they have in the show. So you can only imagine, like, I had to rely so much on character development for Cobra Moon and get the character over, more than my moves and everything else, because I knew that I lacked on that area. But I did everything they told me to do. I listened, and when they were giving me feedback, I will always ask for feedback, and I will always ask for things that I could do better. And when they saw me the next season, they're like, "Oh my God, we can see a huge difference." And the last season, unfortunately, a lot of people didn't get to see it. That's when I was able to do a lot more, because I feel more comfortable with the character and with the moveset and everything.
So I don't know if, along the way you were just waiting to see what opportunities would come along, or did you have a plan? I mean, was it, did you want to get to the WWE? I mean, what was the plan along the way when you really started to see things happening? And I imagine you gained confidence as you went along too.
I mean, I noticed that there's a lot of politics, and there's a lot of who you know and who you associate yourself with in order to get certain opportunities. So I noticed that I wasn't like in the club sometimes. I was kind of like the outsider. So I always feel that way. So I always said, and like I said, my husband and I were like a strong team. We're always like discussing opportunities together. And we always said that we're gonna do things our own way, that they were gonna fix us or they were gonna talk to us because of my talent, because they've seen there's something special or whatever. I mean, I thought of going to the WWE, but I didn't really pursue it, because I feel like when I want something, I go for it completely. But when I'm not fully interested, I don't. Like, then I started noticing that a lot of people sit on NXT for a long, long time, and I didn't want to do that. I don't want to move my whole entire family to Orlando, because I have a kid, and I have a family. It's not like I'm single.
Yeah.
If I was younger and I was single, no problem. I will do whatever it takes. I mean, there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to do as a women wrestler, as a mother, and as a wife. And I didn't want to put my husband in that situation. I'm already putting my husband and my son and my dog through a lot, because I'm like gone for weeks, so it's rough. It's rough for the whole entire family, because I'm a pillar in the family.
Yeah. Well, and but it must be encouraging to you. I mean, as I mentioned when we started this conversation, of all the opportunity that is out there now, like when I worked in the business when I was with the WWF, and I've told this story many times, or I've talked about it many times, that women were someone that they people that they brought in as kind of a sideshow, in a sense. Not that they weren't very talented professionals, but that's just where it was at the time. And people like Sensational Sherry Martel, who helped move that bar for people, and they helped them do that. And now you're seeing, it's just amazing that there's all this opportunity where, look what we've seen happen with the WWE, as I mentioned, and also out there and with other organizations. So do you feel it's a really good time to be where you are?
Absolutely. Couldn't be a better time. I talk to Jazz all the time, and she tells me like she wishes that she would have been in the time that we are now, because people would have appreciated what she had before, and yeah, I mean, you can literally be whoever you want, have any body shape, and people will still. There's always market for everybody now, which is really, really good. But I also think that with that, the market is demanding that we as female wrestlers are full like athletes. Like they want to see flips, they want to see everything kind of like the guys, so I mean, I take pride on that, and I always be like, I want to look like an athlete, I want to perform like an athlete in the ring, inside and outside. And the same thing with being a good performer, because we are performers at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and it just shows you that the popularity of it, because one thing about this business is that all that matters is if people want to see you. All that matters is if you entertain them, and it doesn't matter if it's a male, female, at all. It's just, and we're seeing now that the audiences want to see it, and so there is all this opportunity, and with that, and I'm sure there will be as you travel down this road. But why NWA, and how did that opportunity come along?
Well, I was waiting for Combate to send me my contract. Combate Americas is the MMA company that I was talking to for like a couple months. I was waiting on them, and then WWE contacted me to become a referee. So I was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I said yes because I wanted to do the tryout. I mean, it's an opportunity regardless. Right. And then Dorian, the hurricane happened, and my stuff just kept getting delayed and keep getting delayed. So they canceled my tryout, and they said, come back next week or in 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, in 2 weeks, my fight camp is going to start, so I'm not going to be able to do this. Yeah. And I said, thank you very much for the opportunity, but I have to decline, And then after I say that, the next day, David Lagana contacted me directly, and he's like, do you want to be part of the NWA? And I was just like, oh my God, like this is so crazy. Because he just kept telling me, be patient. I got something for you. Be patient. I got something for you. But I got tired of hearing that all the time, that I'm like, man, nothing's going to come out of this, right? Yeah. And then he's like, yeah, we want you. And, Billy wants to see you. And if he sees what I see in you, you're pretty much going to stay with us. And I'm like, I'm all in. And I'm like, let's do it, because I feel like I worked in other promotions, and I didn't feel like I was taken serious, or that I will be like one of their talents. So with them, it was from day one.
And they were fine with you doing the MMA as well.
Absolutely.
So
they're very supportive, very, very supportive on that.
So I do want to talk about that other part of your life, but since we're on the subject of NWA, What do you see happening with Power and the other projects they have planned, and what's what's it like to be a part of what's happening with the new NWA?
Well, it is very exciting and very accelerating to me because they really picking people that they feel that they can fulfill what Billy wants for the NWA, the new NWA. Like he wants us to be us, and he doesn't want like any hokey stuff. I'm sorry, and he wants people that are going to support the organization and that are there for the organization, not for themselves. And I think that's the reason why it's like the people that are there is because they want to make the NWA better. I mean, there's a lot of awesome history in NWA, but there's also a lot of bad stuff that happened during this whole years in the NWA. And I think he wants to do something very, very positive with the organization.
Yeah, and you look at the roster; it's not a really big roster. And as you know, I talked to Dave, and I've also talked to a few of the other guys that are on the roster now. And as far as the women go, I mean, there's I don't know 7 or so of you on the roster, and obviously that's got to feel pretty good in a sense, kind of an elite way, because you know, they're not picking a lot of people, and they want to make sure those that help them start to build this are the ones they want. So do you feel a part of that? And is it, and that you are really helping them build a foundation with this new wave they've got going?
I think so. I really do think so. Like I said, they have been giving opportunities to people like me that haven't had an opportunity the way that we are here. And like the way that they're showcasing me and showcasing all the women in the show, it's different, you know. I like it. I really enjoy working for the NWA. Like I'm all in for them, and I'm gonna be there until until I don't want to be there or they don't want to be there.
Yeah, well, that's great, and it's great that they allow you to do these other things as well, which I think only helps their organization too. Are there who are some of the women on the roster that you're close to and who have also helped you develop?
That I'm close to. I mean, Ashley Vox, she started around the same time, so we're kind of like fresh in there. Marty, we had before we did shows together. I didn't really did much with a lot of the girls there. I mean, we've been in shows together and other indie shows together, but now we all get along, and that's a good part. You know, we get along well and we work really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a great roster, and it's been fun to see this happen. And now I guess we've kind of gone through the first season. Are you excited about what's ahead?
I'm very excited. I just want to see what's in the storyline and what twists and turns we're gonna have in the women's division. And I really love getting in the podium, cutting the promo, and then getting in on the ring. I really enjoy doing that. It's really cool.
And what about the crowd? Do you like that that closeness? And
yeah, it was weird because I came as a total heel and people were like chanting my name, and it was just like, oh my god, this is so weird, you know. But I mean, that's just a testament of like the hard work that I've been putting for the last couple of years, and they appreciate what I'm doing in the ring. So
yeah, and the look too. You know, the Calavera look. You know, and I live near the border in Arizona, in Tucson, and of course we have our Dia de los Muertos. It's a huge event that they have here. What is the influence of that, and where did that come from? That you decided you wanted to use that influence with your character?
It came from a place that I used to work at in Merced, California. It was like Lucha Extreme, it was called, and they needed to address more Latino fans because they were struggling to draw people. So they decided that it would be a great idea if I painted my face like a sugar skull because it was popular. That's when it was getting like very popular. So I painted my full face, and then they were like, "No, you're too pretty to use the full face. Let's do half." And then I started using half. And I only used half in there. Like everywhere else, I wasn't painting my face, but in Japan, my stuff weren't getting over. My character wasn't getting really over. And then I suffered a concussion a month in my first tour. And then I was out for like a whole month. And then my husband suggested I should paint my face as a representation that I almost died. And now I'm kind of like half. half dead, half alive. And I started using that, and the fans really, really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, I know it's a great look. Uh, let's talk a little bit about the MMA and going into this, and a lot of the professional wrestlers have been doing the crossover. Not everybody can do it. There's people that may be great wrestlers, but it is an entirely different world, and anybody that tries to confuse the two is is very wrong. So was that something that you all once you started getting into this, that was something you wanted to do, or how did that contract come about with Combate?
Well, I started doing jiu-jitsu in 2016, and then I wanted to do competitions, but because I was always working, I was never able to do competitions. Then Alberto Del Rio became really involved with Combate Americas probably since 2017. So they started asking different athletes from different areas if they were interested in doing MMA. The first one that crossover from wrestling was Sexy Star. She had a fight on April this year, and then in January we were entertaining the idea. Alberto talked to me, and he's like, "Hey, are you interested in doing this?" And I was just like, "Let me talk to my husband." And I talked to my husband, and he was like, "I mean, if you want to do it, let's you just have to be committed and just have to train, because this is not something that is going to be super easy." So we kind of put it on the side, on the back burner, and then Mike, who's one of the second in command in Combate Americas, contacted me, and then he's like, "Hey, are you interested in doing this?" And then I was like, "Well, let me think about it a little bit more." I thought about it. He's like, "Talk to the coaches that you've been working with and see what they say." And then I talked to them, and I'm like, "Well, this is what's happening. They want me to do a pro match. What do you guys think?" And they were like, "Well, it is all up to you, because you have to be here all the time." And I'm like, "All right, then it's on." And then I said yes. And like I said, I was waiting for the contract forever. And then the contract came in, I signed it, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm on this. So I started training. Yeah, I started training like full time. Oh, Jesus. At the end of June. And man, it was such a crash course on MMA. Like, I had to learn everything super quick, and I was, when I stepped into the cage, it was a very beautiful experience, like the whole thing. I just wish I would have trained striking and everything else a little bit more before my first fight, but all in all, it was a wonderful experience. All the fans, like all the wrestling fans, came and were the loudest in the arena, and the outpour of support, as you can see. I was able to get a lot of sponsors, and they were not even hesitant to support me in any way that they could from my fight camp. And the outpour of support from other women, actually, in my social media, was really awesome. I was able to make them feel like they can do stuff that they never thought they could. And it just felt really, really great. And now I have a little mark right here. I got busted open.
Nice scar to show off.
I have to win my next fight, but it's good. I had to take a little time off after the fight, but I'm really excited because I have 3 more fights, and I can't wait to see my development in the next couple of years. And I know that it's gonna be amazing, because I get to train in other countries. I get to make other relationships with other people that otherwise I wouldn't be able to do. And it's just the journey has been pretty amazing. It gives you another perspective of pro wrestling and the whole business.
You had you didn't have any amateur fights before this one, and that was the first time? Really?
And they closed the door. I was like, all right, it's on. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, and you handled yourself extremely well. I know I saw the video of the backstage stuff in the locker room after it was over. I know those guys were very impressed with your performance, and given the fact that Mandiao was like 3 inches taller than you, I think, which you had a 7-inch reach on you. Wow.
I was trying to get out, and her hand was already there with 7 inches. Like, wow. But she was an amazing competitor, and at the end we exchanged words. She lost her first pro MMA fight too. And I know that I just have to train harder, and I have to compete in jiu-jitsu, and I have to get more into that mindset of competition, which is what makes fighters to win their fights. And you have to be, when you step in the cage, you have to feel ready. You cannot be afraid of anything, and then you just have to go for it and go for all the marbles. And I think on my second fight, definitely is something that I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm working really hard to achieve my first W on MMA.
Yeah. And is it a 50-50 balance, or is one a priority? What do you want to see happen more?
For training wise, is pretty much I train MMA and jiu-jitsu all the time, and that it translates into my ring. My conditioning is incredible in the ring. I don't get tired. I can have like 30-minute matches and I'm good.
Nothing.
It's good, you know. And it's just like, it just teaches me consistency. I have to be consistent with everything. But I have to be always cautious when I'm in the ring doing pro wrestling, because that's when you get like the nagging injuries from all the bumps that we take. And they're hurting more than ever now that I'm like stepping in the ring. So I'm like, ooh, I gotta take which bump? Oh my God. You know, it's like you really think about your longevity in the ring. And it has made me, like, I will say, a smarter worker in a way.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, you're an older athlete in this world. I mean, as far as the MMA goes, a lot of these people are younger, but in some ways, it can work in your favor just from the experience you have. And how did that, when you obviously were training and wrestling first, how did that help you make the transition? Was it a big advantage for you, or just the conditioning part of it? Or how did the wrestling come into that?
I will say, like, feeling comfortable in certain positions in the cage.
Yeah.
As a pro wrestler, like, that really helped. Like, when being against the cage is like becomes so natural to me, and just working that, it was like really, really, really comfortable. When practicing takedowns and stuff like that, that's another thing. But I mean, there's a lot of things that I need to work on, and in pro wrestling definitely helps. But I think what to answer your question directly will be the amount of effort that I put when I was training as a pro wrestler to learn all the moves and to get it done is like what is the amount of effort that I put for MMA to learn striking, to learn Muay Thai, to learn, grappling and all that. Because again, I had to learn everything from scratch because I didn't know nothing about pro wrestling, and then I knew some of MMA, but I didn't know to the extent to have a pro fight.
Wow. So what's the perfect world here if everything goes according to your plan, to Thunder Rosa's plan? How does it? What's the perfect world of what you'll be doing?
Well, I'm gonna be touring in Japan for a couple of weeks in the next year. Continue to do NWA. Definitely win my second pro MMA fight, and I want to pursue my my certification as a trainer, physical trainer. I'm working with one of my sponsors actually here locally, and they've been talking to me for over a year to become a trainer. And I'm just like, I'm just busy, like this and that. And they're like, well, we're very flexible with your schedule, so you're interested. So I'm like, I think it's time. I'm getting older. I need to have my plan B, and what better way than to become a trainer.
Well, though, I'll tell you, Melissa, I think you're just getting started. So I think you've got a long way to go, and I'm going to enjoy watching it happen. But really, congratulations on everything so far, and I really look forward to seeing what you're going to be doing with the NWA and how that continues to develop. And in this exciting world, and we see that female athletes in MMA are also getting a lot of attention. So, like I said, I think your wave is just starting to crest here.
Well, hopefully you're preaching to
I'm a prophet, right?
This, but I'm very positive. I feel really, really positive, and like I said, it's just putting my mind and into it and doing it. That's like number one, because I can say, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then I just don't do it, because I get sidetracked. But yeah, I just really want to keep having fun, and having the opportunity to do a job that is a dream job and that doesn't feel like a job, and this is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, well, I know your fan base keeps growing, and I'm sure you've made a few more during this conversation with the folks that listen to Primetime. So how can they follow you? What are some of the ways on social media or emails, or how can they connect with you?
Well, like they can Thunder Rosa to Facebook, Thunder Rosa 2020 Instagram and Twitter. And they can also go on Big Cartel, thunderrosa.bigcartel.com if they want to get merchandise there.
All right. Thank you for coming on, Melissa, Thunder Rosa. And like I said, best of luck. And I know there's a lot ahead for you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed this interview. It was like actually talk about things that I haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We'll do it again, too, when we have a lot more to talk about, too. So
Yes.
thanks.
And
Thanks for coming.
We have NWA on Tuesdays at 6:05.
That's right, folks. More of the movement is on the way.
Yes.
Thunder Rosa, thank you.
Thank you.